This much is already clear. We're on the right track. Our plan is working, and we're not going to let up now.
President Biden continuing to push for his jobs bill, including a huge infrastructure plan, but making little progress in talks with Senate Republicans. And it's time now for our Sunday group, former RNC Communications Director Doug Heye, Susan Page of USA Today, and Fox News contributor Marie Harf. So, Susan, let me start with you. You've been around Washington a while, as I have. What's your sense of where we're headed with infrastructure? A bipartisan compromise, a straight party line vote through budget reconciliation in the Senate, or no bill at all?
You know, I think that we're at the point where the negotiations are making a point, not making a deal. And making a point, first and foremost, to your last guest, Joe Manchin. I think that Democrats, especially the White House, trying to make the point that they have tried in good faith to reach a bipartisan deal. And I thought it was interesting that Senator Manchin, in your question, response to your question, did not rule out voting for a bill along a pure party line vote, a reconciliation bill, when it comes to this infrastructure. I think that was a significant suggestion. Democrats are now moving ahead on the things they need to do to pass this bill on a party line vote through reconciliation, including hearings that begin in the House this week on that transportation bill. You know, Senator Manchin said he's very confident they can reach a bipartisan bill. If he's very confident, he is the only one in Washington who feels that way. I think we are moving toward a party line vote on it.
Doug, you know, infrastructure is almost always popular with voters. They like seeing new bridges. They like seeing resurfaced highways without potholes in them. And you look at the latest jobs numbers that came out on Friday, the economy is still struggling a bit. Is it a smart political play for Republicans if in the end they don't come to an agreement on infrastructure and Democrats end up taking either the responsibility and the benefit of passing it?
Well, it's certainly a risky strategy, but one not without precedent. If we go back to 2009, Joe Biden led a shovel-ready stimulus job package that Democrats said would be electoral doom for Republicans if they opposed it. Obviously, in 2010, that didn't happen. I still hope that a deal is possible, but the reality is, Chris, it's not a question of what is the number, 1.1 trillion versus 900 billion or what have you. The reality is Republicans and Democrats disagree on what the parameters are. How do you pay for it? Is it really infrastructure? Those are real differences.
Marie, let me ask you about that. Republicans say if the answer was just spending more money, that the economy would already be booming, and as we saw with the latest job report for May, it isn't booming. And the president is talking, let's assume now that there is no deal with the Republicans, so he can go back to his original $2.25 trillion for jobs and $1.9 trillion for his family's plan. You're talking about $4 trillion in more spending, $4 trillion in more taxes. Isn't there a political risk for Democrats, and that Joe Biden is going to be sticking a big tax and spend liberal sticker on the back of any Democrat who runs for election in the 2022 midterms?
Well, Chris, both Republicans and Democrats have proven themselves very willing to spend a lot of money in the past few years. And so this is increasingly a bipartisan way to do business in Washington. But I think Joe Biden will make the argument in the midterm elections that first, this spending is helping real Americans. We just saw this week how the government programs that helped people come out of COVID, come out of the economic situation, were really helping real Americans on the ground. And he will also make the case that this spending is about building up the middle class and coming out of this crisis even stronger, something we didn't do very well in the previous economic crisis. And so if he makes the case that, look, I came down on spending, I tried to change the way we would pay for it, and Republicans just had no interest in governing. They are already gearing up for the midterms, and all of these programs, all of this spending is impacting real Americans in a really positive way. That's the case Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress will have to make in the midterms. Right. And we will see evidence of that if this actually passes with roads and bridges and all of the things we've talked about.
I want to turn to a serious and growing issue, and that is cyber attacks. And you had the extraordinary statement this week from FBI Director Christopher Wray that he now compares the threat from cyber attacks to the threat from terrorism and compares it to what we were facing just before 9/11. And here was White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on that same subject this week.
President Biden certainly thinks that President Putin and the Russian government has a role to play in stopping and preventing these attacks. Hence, it will be a topic of discussion when they meet in 2 weeks.
Susan, do you expect President Biden to be able to make headway on the issue of cyber attacks and what the world is going to do about it? First, when he meets with allies starting this week in Europe, and then on June 16th when he sits down with Russian President Putin.
Well, those two venues are related, right? If there can be more concerted action by allies to pressure Russia to stop supporting these cyber attacks, to stop providing a safe haven for these groups that are mounting them, that would be helpful. You know, it's hard, though. We've seen the administration, the Biden administration, in April impose some tough sanctions on Russia to not great effect. And the question is, I think, to what degree is the United States willing to disrupt U.S.-Russia relations on this front when there are other issues on which we want to have some cooperation? I think this is a tough one. That meeting in Geneva that's coming up between the president and Putin, really a crucial one to watch.
Doug, what can we do? Both the U.S. unilaterally, the U.S. as part of a Western movement, the public side of it, the private side of it. What can we do to protect ourselves from cyber attacks? I mean, when you see the biggest meat supplier in the country shut down, when you see the owners of the biggest gas or energy pipeline in the country shut down, that's got to get your attention.
Yeah, absolutely, and it needs to be a from top to bottom effort, not just from the federal government, not just from the President Biden being tough with Vladimir Putin when they meet in Geneva. Also, China, we shouldn't leave them out of this conversation. But it's up to Congress to strengthen our cybersecurity rules. I've been working on issues around this going back to 2005, and our electric grid is very vulnerable. It's a soft underbelly for our entire economy. Thus far, Chris, we've been lucky that it's been a few things that have caused inconveniences, but not crises. We can't count on being lucky too much longer. The president has to show leadership here that, frankly, Donald Trump didn't show, Barack Obama didn't show, George W. Bush didn't show. We need to show real leadership from America and also with our allies in Europe that we're not going to put up with this anymore, and real strategies moving forward to prevent it here in the United States.